Hi, friends of the light. Welcome on this beautiful, wonderful day today. And thank you for being here. Thank you. So today's video is, are you in a codependent relationship with your negative ego? Let us begin. It is very easy to slip from a dependency on a negative ego into a codependency where you slip into a relationship with your own negative ego. You see, in a world with these monumental changes, with shifting paradigms, new patterns of causation, with the past that is relinquishing its power, and a future that is gathering its influence, with a global community in which it is now small, such as actions and reactions, cannot be isolated, well, seem to be problems that have no solution. This upward mobility with nowhere to go, with the demands of affection and performance, when you are discouraged to think and to feel, when at time thinking and feeling is only answer in many cases, in the chaotic panicking, insanity, and in the pity that is so much a part of your reality, of your world, increasingly, it is very easy to slip from a dependency on a negative ego into a codependency, where you slip into a codependent relationship with your negative ego. In a codependent relationship, because of the impossibility to initiate or participate in a loving relationship, it makes it very difficult to give love, very difficult to receive love, and very difficult to love and be loved. In a codependency relationship, it is a dependency where one feels the problem is the control of the other. The other's controlling behavior is so repressive, so imprisoning, so hurtful, and so suffocating that the only way I can possibly change, the only way I can finally be free, is to control their controlling behavior. When two people are in a codependent relationship, it is virtually impossible for them to initiate or really participate in a deep union of love. Games, yes, lots of them, but deep union of love? No. You see, in a codependent relationship, it is a dependent relationship that makes it impossible or very difficult to initiate or participate in a loving, thriving relationship, even with yourself. In a sense, that inability to communicate, the sense that being controlled by people's behaviors, and I am going to control theirs, the sense that exaggerated need for outside validation and control, and that sense of woeful self-neglect, and to realize you may have codependency in your life as a physical being, but you probably also have one with your ego. And to get a sense of the ego and why it developed, not bad or wrong, humanity is not stupid. You're not stupid. You developed an ego for a very wise and beautiful reason. You needed an eye, and you needed a portal, but then you made a mistake. That's all right. Demanding too much of it, expecting it to take over the job function of running your life, and it tried and failed and continues to fail, and all the while getting angrier and angry at you. Determining you're the enemy that must be destroyed. And then a codependency, right? So as you let it in and realize it, and then you can take the steps not to just bust or diminish your ego, but though virtually important, but to end the codependency. How many of you have destroyed your ego over and over again, and then beat yourself up because it's not gone? And the reason is because of codependency. Now, admittedly, the one who is acknowledging that I am in a codependency with so-and-so often doesn't see the other side, doesn't want to see the other side. and gets angry at seeing the other side. So what's important to understand is this mutuality, this codependency. You have set down a number of rules for your ego, negative ego. Ego takes charge of my whole life. That's an oppressive rule that limits it from clear communication. You have diminished its capacity to function appropriately, and what it would be, therefore, in its relation and definition of its own function of a loving relationship. Now, the way out is also dependent upon and reliant upon, perhaps a better word, reliant upon, seeing the mutuality. Co, in this case, doesn't mean two, it means mutual. Codependent. We are both depending on the other to play the role so that we can both feel oppressed by the rules, restricted in our communications. We can both have diminished capacity for initiating and participating in a loving relationship. We can both feel the other is controlling, and the only way to be free, right, is to control them. We can both work with various upsides and downsides and control and exaggeration and exaggerated way, seeking that outside validation and never getting it. We can both be crippled, and we can both woefully neglect ourselves. So the mutuality is, in the sense, the umbrella over these four conditions. Firstly, codependency adheres to very strict oppressive rules. The second criteria is a dependency in which the behaviors of others seems to emphasize the word, seems to control your life. My dog's walking around here. The thirdly criteria for codependency is that it is a dependency that diminishes your capacity to engage in a loving relationship. The fourth criteria of a codependent relationship is that it is a dependency that exaggerates the need to control those producing an insatiable need for outside validation. It feels it's got to control you, your behaviors, your insistence of making it run your life. You are keeping it from growing up, from being wise, from being anything but weak and immature, stupid and ignorant. And in that sensing, woefully neglecting its own functions, your ego. Therefore, you end up in a codependent relationship. Then, when you start heaping more power on it because of a chaotic world, things moving so fast, because you have to be perfect, can't make mistakes, because you're supposed to function without thinking and feeling, even though it's impossible to function without thinking and feeling. Therefore, you demand more of it. It becomes a deeper sense of codependency. We would suggest here that's what goes wrong. So when did it happen? What lifetime? It happened the moment you told your ego to run your life. The moment you stopped being in charge of the context and the content of your life, which for some was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 2 minutes ago. And every time you relinquish your power, you are augmenting what could be the codependency. It didn't go wrong in Atlantis, and you have been suffering ever since it went wrong moments ago, when you relinquished your power, when you have your ego, the responsibility for the context and the form, when you stop being conscious of your reality. Firstly, codependency adheres to very strict oppressive rules. Or if you want to reverse it around, when a relationship becomes codependent, taking on a certain very unique, distinct qualities, when a relationship becomes codependent, then it becomes destructive. No matter who it's with, it becomes destructive. Therefore, to understand, we need to look specifically at what is codependency And there are 4 criteria, 4 very specific, very detailed criteria that are involved with a codependent relationship. First criteria for a relationship to be codependent: it must involve a dependency that demands adherence to oppressive rules that limit or eliminate the open expression of thoughts and feelings, or that limit open communication. It's a dependency that demands adherence to a suppressive set of rules that eliminates open communication or open expression of thought and feeling in a relationship between 2 people. So we cannot talk about my or your mother. We cannot talk about my job. We cannot talk about your religion or spirituality. We cannot talk about how much money we earn. We cannot talk about how one of my family members is doing better than me. We cannot talk about the fact that we don't make love every blue moon, which is once a year. We cannot talk about the things you want to do. We must first complete what I want to do now. We cannot talk about this or that. You must have this done. You must have this right. This must be how the house looks. This is how you must act. This is how much money you must earn. This is how often we can have friends over. This is how much you can speak on the telephone, etc. Very strict rules that must be adhered to, demands strict adherence to oppressive rules. There is no room for open communication. Can we talk about why we can't talk about your mother? All right, that's it. No more. I'm out of here. I'm going for the night to get drunk. Can we talk about why you can't pay your debt, or why you have debt? Oh, now you made me feel terrible. Now you're just trying to destroy me. That's one of the rules. We cannot talk about it. I'm out of here. Oh no, you blew it. Left at the wrong time. We are not talking anymore tonight. No more sex for months. How dare you talk to me like that? Or even talk of that. You know, my favorite television show is on now. You know, you are not supposed to interrupt me. You know, you're not supposed to speak during these next 30 minutes. Therefore, I'm not speaking to you for the rest of the week. No sex too. Disrespect my time, oppressive rules that one must adhere to, you must and have to now adhere to, or else punishment, abandonment, cause. There is no communication. Even so, there is no open communication. You can't talk about your feelings, can't talk about what you think. There's no room for communication. You must follow these rules or else, and I mean it. That's codependency that develops codependency, and that's the first criteria. The second criteria is it is a dependency in which the behaviors of others the word seems to control your life. I got to get them to grow, then I can be spiritual. My freedom, my happiness, my independence has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with fixing them, controlling them, getting them to change. Their behaviors control me. It's a dependency in which the behaviors of others controls you, or seems to control you. And a codependent relationship is a dependency where one feels the problem is the control of the other. The other controlling behavior is so repressive, so imprisoning, so hurtful, and so suffocating that the only way I can possibly change, and the only way I can finally be free, is to control their behavior, or your ego's behavior, or your ego controlling your behavior. The wife or husband of an alcoholic or drug addict past in a codependent relationship, the one clean and sober, will say, I got to make them the recovering or recovered addict or alcoholic happy. I got to make them laugh. I got to make them do things. I got to entertain them. I got to distract them from the bottle or pipe. If I can just keep them from drinking, keep them from using, keep him from hitting me, or keep her from hitting me, if I can just appease them, if I can stop them from hitting me, or keep them from taking the drug, keep them from going out with their friends, keep them going to work, keep them doing exercise, if I can just control everything, even their controlling behavior, then I can finally be free. I got to get to stop drinking, then I can be happy. It is my responsibility to keep them safe and happy and not drinking. Codependency. You see, if they start drinking, then their life is over. When they drink or use, they become oppressive, controlling, suffocating. So the only way I can be free is to hide the bottle. Hopefully, they will forget about it. If I do nice, if I fix this, if I do what they want to do, if I bring home flowers, if I clean the house, if I'm nice, do the laundry, buy them this, and if I do this, etc., I will keep them from drinking and using. Where you become obsessed with controlling their controlling behaviors in order to be free. If I can get them a decent job, then I can sleep at night. I got to get them to stop obsessing, then I can relax. I got to get them to grow, then I can be spiritual. My freedom, my happiness, my independence has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with fixing them, controlling them, and getting them to change. It happens in those sorts of codependency. It happens in less obvious ones. It could grow if I could only get my husband interested in metaphysics, or my wife interested in metaphysics. I could grow only, if they would change. If they could see what I'm doing with my higher self and my spirituality. I could grow if only my parents would see me, or if only my children would listen. When I have a situation where the behavior seems to be controlling me, and I become obsessed with having to control their behaviors so I can be free, I'm not working on my growth, I'm working on getting them to give me permission to grow. I'm not changing my reality, I'm working on them to get it, that they create theirs. If they would just get it, then I would be happy. I'm obsessed with controlling their controlling behavior. Then I can be free. Then I can do what I want. Then I can be happy. If I could just get them to stop beating the kids, then all I would be, never occurring. That you could take the kids away. Maybe you could make some changes. Make some change yourself. Maybe could call the police. No, I got to control them, you see. Many of you have experienced the downside of that in your own shame. If being abused by one parent and watching the other tippy-toe around with the excuse of I said anything would have only made it worse. I had to control them. Now settle down now. It's okay. Here, let's do this. I got to control them to be free. That's the second criteria. That is a dependency, that their behavior seemed to be controlling me, and I become obsessed with controlling their behavior in order to be free. You can also do this with your ego, controlling your ego's behavior, and your ego trying to control your behavior. The third criteria for a codependency is that it is a dependency that diminishes your capacity to initiate or participate in a loving relationship. What does that mean? It means it diminishes your capacity to receive love. I cannot receive love from this person. They are drunk. They are being abusive, being controlling. They're being violent. They are being self-destructive now. They are lost in their own delusions now. They're in their paranoia. There is no way I can receive and nowhere I can give. I can't give them any security, any pleasure, any sense of vulnerability, any sense of trust. I can't talk to my partner about how I'm worried or I'm scared or fearful. I can't initiate any kind of communication, can't initiate any kind of love or initiate any kind of intimacy. I can't give love, I can't receive love, and I can't be loved. It diminishes my capacity in the nature of dependency itself. It diminishes my capacity to give or receive or be loved, to give or receive or participate in intimacy, or give and receive and participate in caring in a dependency that makes it such that I cannot initiate or participate in a loving relationship. Why are you talking to that person? Why are you talking to them? Why are you having friends in the first place? Why do you want to go out? Why do you want to invite people over? You can't have relationships. You can't have intimacy. Can't have loving friends. It's me. I am the husband, or I am the wife, or I am the partner, or I am, you can turn to for that, although I won't let you. That's a codependent relationship where you cannot initiate or participate in a loving relationship. The fourth criteria of a codependent relationship is that it is a dependency that exaggerates the need to control, thus producing an insatiable need for outside validation. It is a dependency that is so crippling that you not only become self-neglect, but what we can call woefully affected by or full of woe, mournful, or expressing sorrow or misery, self-neglect. Not just where I neglect myself, but I become woefully in my self-neglect. I don't sleep, I don't eat, I don't do this, I don't do that. I totally neglect myself, woefully, destructively. It's not just sacrificing, well, I would like to go to the movies tonight, but I'll stay home. You're neglecting yourself, not necessarily at all, but when it becomes woeful, total self-neglect is what we call woeful, damaging self-neglect, where I am hurting myself and I am mistreating and neglecting myself, is woeful self-neglect. Codependency is a dependency in which the control is so exaggerated that outside validation is insatiable, can't get enough, or that can't not be satisfied or appeased, and so crippling the neglect is woeful. Now those are the four criteria. Now do you have to meet them all? No. But we would suggest here that generally you have to meet more than one if any of these 2 or 3 or 4 conditions are met. And usually in a codependent relationship, all 4 are met. But if any 2, then you are in a codependent relationship, you are participating in a codependency. Now, fortunately, in your world, some are dealing with codependency publicly and openly. Support groups for AA, support groups for spouses of alcoholics, Al-Anon, or spouses of drug abusers. There are those support groups or abusive parents for children who are affected in that sensing, and that's fantastic. Finally and appropriate in a world that codependency is now on the increase due to the phenomenon of the decade, due to the lack of upward space in order to move, to put yourself, due to that demands perfection and performance, due to the lack of thinking and feeling that is pushed and demanded of you. When codependency increases, it is appropriate in those places to get help, absolutely. But often what is forgotten in dealing with the codependency, a point that is so very important to consider, And painful as it is to consider it, that is, codependency, meaning any two or more of these qualities, is mutual, meaning as this person is demanding adherence to oppressive rules that prevent me from communicating openly. So I have my own set of oppressive rules that I am putting on them. I will not talk to you until you stop drinking. I won't cuddle you or be near you until you be nice to me. I will not fully love you or talk to you until you get a decent job or make more money or support me better. I will not talk to you unless endlessly. I can talk during your most favorite show. I will not do this unless you meet my criteria, although the one who identifies himself as codependent often sees if also they would look to have their own set of oppressive roles to eliminate their own and the other person's communication. So the diminished capacity that I experience by not being able to love, be loved, and give love also diminishes the other person's capacity. They hold it or they see it in that capacity, rightly or wrongly, they hold it in that capacity. Well, I see it that their behavior controls me, therefore I got to control their behavior in order to be free. They see your behavior is what is making me do this. And I have got to control your behavior in order to be free. And where that relationship has developed such excessive needs and exaggerated needs of control, both parties feel controlled by the other and need the outside validation of the other. Surely they will never get it. Both are crippling and woefully neglecting themselves. Codependency is a destructive influence, and a negative ego is a destructive force. And when you combine destructive influence with a destructive force, the result is singular and obvious: destruction. Now, admittedly, in metaphysics and metaphysical learning, you can develop codependency, but only if there is a or mutuality. There are those that teach metaphysics that tell you you must follow the rules and you cannot question. You cannot doubt, and you cannot think, and you cannot read other books, and you cannot study other material. You must adhere to the rules, and it does limit your capacity to communicate your thoughts and feelings. There are those in metaphysical community who diminish your capacity to initiate relationships. You've got to find a relationship within the group, within the cult, within the family, yes, within the followers, as you segregated yourself from the military mindset of we are the knowing ones and the other ones are the unknowing. We don't listen to them. You know those unevolved ones? And you can't associate, you can't involve yourself with them, where indeed there is that feeling that I got to get my guru's approval before I can grow and change. That is the only way I can do it if my guru permits me to do that, where indeed that outside validation to win their approval, if exaggerated needs of control and people end up woefully neglecting themselves and their families. Yes, even within the beautiful realms of metaphysics, codependency can develop, but it must be not only feel that, but it's there in mutuality, that in that sensing that generates that codependency. And yes, codependency is an influence that is destructive, obviously, but it's very definition. It is very easy to slip from a dependency on a negative ego into codependency, where you slip into a relationship with your own negative ego, where there are strict rules to follow and you're not allowed open communication, not allowed to think or feel and express your thinking and feeling. Your capacity is diminished to initiate and participate in loving relationships because of the dependency which you have held upon your negative ego. You have convinced yourself that your negative ego is controlling you. And unless you control your negative ego, you will never be free. You have convinced yourself in that sense, I got to control it and you and my child and my adolescence and the day and the weather and the night and everything that is happening, or I'll never get where I want to go. I got to meditate 4 times in the morning, run my energy. I got to do this. I got to talk to my counselor. I got to work. I got to create. I got to do 14 different types of meditations today, different techniques. And if I do, I'll get all these validations, but I end up neglecting myself and neglecting those around me because of a dependency upon the destructiveness of my own negative ego. Therefore, in your world, now more than ever, it is important to recognize and acknowledge and change to end the codependency. In this year of exploration, it's not only a time to be free of your self-pity, but a time to end the codependency that you have or are developing with your very own negative ego. Furthermore, now, if you can work with that, we know we said a lot, and we did so quite on purpose because your ego can't follow everything said. Thank you for listening today. This is Chris Parr, Syrian in the Marian Wisdoms and Teachings.